£50 for a living Penobscot man, £40 for his scalp, £25 for a woman's scalp, £20 for a child under 12. The government of Massachusetts Bay Colony published that price list on November 3rd, 1755. The document still exists. It sits in the Massachusetts Historical Society archive in Boston, and the island it helped empty has a place called Indian Point, where the island's own historian recorded that tradition says 100 Penobscot people were killed and buried there. There is no marker, no plaque, no ceremony, just the sign. Nobody on the ferry from Rockland knows what it means. This documentary is about why. To understand how an island in Penobscot Bay got that name, we have to go back 6,000 years, because someone was already here. The island, now called North Haven, sits 4 miles off the coast of Rockland, in the middle of Penobscot Bay. 4,000 acres of spruce and granite, lobster boats in winter, sailing yachts in summer. One of the most exclusive addresses on the eastern seaboard. The Penobscot Nation had been living here for at least 6,000 years before any of that existed. Archaeologists call it the Turner Farm Site, a shell midden on a low bluff above the bay, the accumulated refuse of thousands of years of meals, swordfish bones, shellfish, stone tools, pottery fragments from at least 3 distinct prehistoric periods. More than 49 sites of archaeological significance on this island alone, 8 placed on the National Register. The Turner Farm Site is the oldest and deepest physical proof of a continuous human presence stretching back further than the Egyptian pyramids. The Penobscot did not pass through this island, they were the island. The midden is 6,000 years of meals, left in the ground, still there. What ended it? The first blow did not come from a soldier. It came from the water. In 1616, and again in 1633, epidemic disease swept through the coastal Wabanaki populations of Maine. The mortality estimates are staggering. Somewhere between 75 and 90% of entire coastal communities dead. The Penobscot Nation, already weakened by 2 centuries of colonial encroachment, was brought to its knees before a single bounty was ever paid. That matters, because what happened next was not panic. It was not accident. It was a decision. By the mid-18th century, the Anglo-Abenaki wars had kept the Maine coast in violent conflict for generations. The Penobscot, allied with the French, were fighting to hold what remained of their homeland. The colonial government of Massachusetts Bay had a problem. A people already decimated by disease, still resisting. So on October 28, 1755, the Massachusetts House of Representatives voted. And on November 3rd, Spencer Phips, Lieutenant Governor of the province of Massachusetts Bay, signed his name at the council chamber of the old State House in Boston. The Penobscot Nation was hereby declared, in the language of the official document, enemies, rebels, and traitors to His Majesty King George II. Every colonial subject was commanded to pursue, capture, kill, and destroy them. The price list followed. This was not frontier chaos. It was a legislative vote and an executive signature, with a published schedule, administered through colonial trading posts that handled Penobscot scalps the way they handled animal skins: weighed, tallied, paid. The Phips Proclamation was one of 5 bounty orders issued by Boston in 1755 alone. Between 1675 and 1757, the province of Massachusetts Bay issued an estimated 65 such proclamations. Spencer Phips did not invent a policy. He was its efficient administrator. In the autumn of 1755, his signature made the killing government procurement. The Fox Islands, the colonial name for what are now North Haven and Vinyl Haven, sat at the center of Penobscot territory. Penobscot Bay is named for that nation. These were not distant frontier lands. This was the heart of the homeland. In the years after the proclamation, as the bounty system ran its course, Penobscot people who had survived the epidemic and the scalp hunters tried to return to what was theirs. The island's own historian recorded what happened. Leon Staples, writing in his History of North Haven, published for the island's centennial celebration in 1946, described Penobscot people arriving by war canoe, attempting to reclaim their land. Staples wrote that those people had, in his own words, some prior claim to all lands on the Maine coast. He wrote that in a centennial program. And then he recorded the tradition that approximately 100 Penobscot people were killed and buried at the place now known as Indian Point. That account carries no date. No independent primary source has been identified to corroborate it. It is tradition, local memory preserved in the island's own commemorative literature, acknowledged by the island's own historian, who understood what it implied and recorded it anyway. The massacre has no marker. The centennial program was published. The town kept celebrating its founding. The accusation did not come from outside. It came from inside the house. Then came the paperwork. 30 years after the proclamation, the settlers on the Fox Islands had a problem. They had land, but no deed. The first European settlers had arrived around 1762. More families through the 1770s, farming and fishing and building homes on land the Penobscot had occupied for 6,000 years. Land cleared for them not by treaty, not by purchase, but by epidemic and bounty order and the violence at places like Indian Point. So in 1785, they sent a petition to Boston. They asked for clear title to their lands. The Massachusetts General Court granted it on March 13, 1786. The document is in the Massachusetts Archives, Series 228, Past Resolves, Chapter 97. There's no Penobscot signature anywhere near it. No land cession, no treaty, no negotiation, no compensation. The same government that had paid 40 pounds for a Penobscot man's scalp in 1755 handed out Penobscot land as a clerical formality in 1786. Every property deed on North Haven today traces to that transaction. Murder became property. The title chain is unbroken. The Penobscot Nation is not a historical people. They are a living, federally recognized nation with a tribal government on Indian Island in Old Town, Maine. Their ambassador's name is Molly and Dana. Their memory of what was done to them is intact because the people survived. The bounty failed. In 2021, the Upstander Project released a short documentary called Bounty. Molly and Dana stood in the old State House in Boston, the same building where Spencer Phips signed the proclamation 266 years earlier, and read it aloud. Her daughters were with her. Her 9-year-old daughter, Layla Bear, read the document. A girl holding a government price list for children that looked like her. Her face was perplexed. She was alive. That is the answer to the Phips Proclamation. Not argument, not policy. A 9-year-old girl in the room where the order was signed, reading it aloud because the people it was designed to destroy are still here. The North Haven community built something at the Turner farm site, a 21-foot steel swordfish, a monument to the people who hunted from that beach for thousands of years before the first European settlers stepped ashore. It is real, it is physical, it is specific, and it is not enough. Because Indian Point still has no marker. The ferry from Rockland carries passengers who will drive past that sign and feel nothing, because they have been given nothing to feel. The island's own centennial program recorded the tradition decades before the sculpture went up, and nobody followed up with a marker, an inquiry, or a question. The question that no one on North Haven has publicly asked, and that this documentary cannot answer, is the simplest one. Has anyone looked? Is there a burial at Indian Point? Has any archaeologist surveyed the ground where, according to the island's own historian, 100 Penobscot people may lie? Were they killed under the authority of the bounty schedule Spencer Phips signed? Were those people, unnamed in any record, killed for money? The archive in Boston has the price list. The archive in Boston has the title chain. Nobody has gone to Indian Point, and asked what is in the ground.